Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. SLIN, and welcome to the show. Today, we're talking about competitive TF2's money problems. Where are the TF2 sponsors? Where have they all gone? And are they coming back? Every major region, every major scene in TF2 had sponsors. I'm talking about those multi-game organizations that sponsor not only TF2 teams, but teams across other esports as well. Evil Geniuses, Complexity Gaming, Team Pandemic, Epsilon Esports, Team Immunity, Check 6 Gaming, Leviathan Gaming. These are just some of the multi-game organizations that have supported TF2 teams. But I'm also talking about sponsors, those companies, those gaming-related companies, the peripheral companies that want to get their brands out there. So Intel, Razer, TT Esports, Zoe, Twitch. These guys had skin in the game. They were trying to support the TF2 scene. They were trying to grow the TF2 scene. They were trying to spread their brands. And then they pulled out. Really early on in TF2, there was a bunch of them that were in the game, then they pulled out. Then later on, a couple of them came back, then they're out again. And you have to understand that these are companies. These are organizations looking to make money. And that is the big elephant in the room is that, okay, if they're not staying, that must mean they're not making money, right? Now, everyone will look at the sponsors as a way to gauge the health of an esport, but I will look at the prize pools. And I'm from North America, and the number one league in North America is ESEA. That's the big pay-to-play league for the North American TF2 scene. And an interesting thing to look at is the prize pool for North American Invite and how that's changed over time. If you look at the TF2 Invite prize pool, it hasn't changed in 6 seasons. Every single season, the prize pool for Invite has been $14,180. First place gets $6,360. Second place gets $3,660. Third place gets $2,080. Fourth place gets $2,080. Now, you notice that third and fourth place are tied. In past seasons, you would earn more money for getting third place, but I think they evened it out. But still, the past 6 seasons has remained the same. In fact, they haven't changed the prize pool since season 14 when it was $13,140, and that was in July of 2013. The prize pool has remained the same for 2.5 years. Meanwhile, the ESEA total prize pool has grown. Back in 2013, it was $90,000. They always like to say, like, we've got $90,000 in cash prizes that we're giving out this season. This season, they're giving out $575,000 in prize money. So you can see where all the money's going towards. It's going towards the Counter-Strike division of ESEA, not to the TF2 division. Now, let's look a little bit deeper into the economics of it. Let's say you want to play a season of Invite TF2. It's going to cost you about $80, $85 to play a season. That's going to be 3 months. So which is less than the cost of a ticket to Disneyland. I think a park hopper ticket to Disneyland is like $120. So you could go to Disneyland for a day of fun, or you could play TF2 for an entire 3-month season. And I think for those Invite players, they're choosing the $80 to play the Invite season. But if you look at that first place team, let's say there's 6 players paying $80. That's $480. They're converting that $480 to $6,360. So the net win is about $6,000. And you divide that by 6. There's 6 players. So each player gets $1,000 for a 3-month season, which comes out to about $300 a month. Which if you divide that by 30 days, that's $10 a day. You're getting $10 a day to play TF2, and that's before taxes. So there's really not a lot of money in the scene. And it doesn't really take a lot of research to figure that out. Any sponsor, any multi-game organization, anyone can go Google ESEA Season 20 prize pool and figure out how much money these teams are making each season. And they'll realize that it's really not a lot of money. There's not a lot of money in the TF2 scene. And that's because the TF2 scene is so small right now. This is echoed all around. If you look around the world, like ETF2L, they get the money for their prize pool each season, I believe, through crowdfunding, through Indiegogo. They raise like $4,500 and they split that up amongst the teams. Oz Fortress, I don't even think they have a prize pool anymore. They used to give like unusuals and in-game items back in the day. I don't think they even have a prize pool anymore. And then UGC, which is the free-to-play league that supports the Highlanders scene and also the Sixes scene as well in the 4v4, they raised through their crowdfunding, I think like $3,000 for UGC Platinum this recently. I don't even know what season it was, but they tried to raise money to motivate the Highlander scene to keep playing. And it's really unfortunate that there's really not a lot of money in TF2, but it makes sense. The scene is just so small, and it's a small esport within a larger casual scene within the larger video games umbrellas. It's not even really under the esports umbrella. So everyone looks at TF2 and goes, wow, I wish the sponsors were here to put money in the game, to grow the game. Why are the sponsors not here? And everyone looks to the rest of the esports of the world, and the number one to look at is League of Legends. It's the largest esport in the world. And the sponsors in that game are ridiculous. It's like Samsung and like Counterlogic Gaming and Team Liquid and all these organizations that everyone has heard of. And everyone wants those guys to come to TF2. But I don't think that they're coming to TF2 anytime soon. Unless you get like a magical sponsor like Invictus Gaming, where for League of Legends, Invictus Gaming is owned by the son of the third richest man in China. Like that's just a ridiculous amount of money that you can just kind of throw around. Now, to be fair, we did have our own little miniature version of that when Salamancer backed I-46. So if you go back in time, I-46 was the first international LAN for TF2. The TF2 global scene wanted to see which scene was the better one, and so they wanted to send the North American team to go face off against a European team in England to see who was better. And the players, it was risky for them because they didn't want to buy plane flights and they didn't want to buy hotel rooms early and in advance because it's too risky for them. And what if their fundraising campaigns fell through? So what Salamancer did, which was extremely generous, was he said, look, I'm going to front $20,000 here. So I'm going to guarantee you guys $20,000. You try and raise whatever money you can to try and get to Europe. And if you can't, then I will give you the rest of the money. And the TF2 global scene raised $18,000 to send those teams, to send Leviathan Gaming and Classic Mixup to I-46. And Sal still generously donated a couple $1,000s to get them there. But I think that was just an extraordinary situation where without Sal's help, I don't think that LAN would have happened. And the thing is, we can't really rely on crowd-funded prize pools and one-off Salamancer supporters to support the global TF2 scene. That's just not really an option, a long-term option. I think even then, like, that wasn't even really the wisest use of money. I think a lot of people will agree with me. Some people will disagree. But when you think about it, we took $20,000 and sent 12 people to go to Europe to see which TF2 team was better. I think that $20,000 could have been spent on, tournaments and trying to get people interested in the game and try and bring people toward the game. You could argue that, spending $20,000 to have this international LAN brought TF2 a lot of exposure, but I don't think it brought any new players to the scene. Now let's look at what other scenes are doing, what other esports scenes are doing. So the most notable one is Dota 2, because they raised like $18 million for their largest tournament of the year to attract teams, to attract an audience to watch that game and get interested in that game. People who don't even play Dota 2 go, wow, that is so much money. Maybe I should try playing Dota 2. What's all this hype about? Like, why is it so interesting? And the way they're able to get that money is by selling in-game items, the compendium, to take a portion of each sale of that in-game item and then donate, essentially put that towards the prize pool. And that's how the prize pool got so big every season, was through the sales of these in-game items. You look at that, you look at CSGO, every Blizzard game ever, like Hi-Rez even has their own game, Smite. And then the craziest esport that I've seen recently was H1Z1, which I didn't think would be an esport at all. I mean, I don't think these zombie survival games really are, but they also sold in-game items and then took a portion of that and then made a prize pool. And they had the Twitch Invitational, where the top H1Z1 players were invited to come in and see who's going to survive the longest. I think that was a really cool idea. And you can see what all these things have in common is they have developer support. I mean, you look at all the major esports in the world and they have the developers back. The developers are interested in turning this game into something a lot larger than just a video game. It's now a sport. It is something that people can practice and put time into and get better at and compete for money. So I think that the sponsors realize that. They see that, and they see that TF2 doesn't have that. They see that TF2 doesn't have the developer support right now. Now, as we all know, TF2 is moving in a direction where we're going to get developer support, where we're going to have matchmaking support, where it's possible for TF2 to turn into an esport. And that's why all the sponsors are sort of waiting. They haven't really been supporting the game at all. They're kind of just holding their cards. They got their money. They're just sitting there. They're just thinking like, is this a game worth investing into right now? Because when you look at it as an investment, it's really not the best investment, TF2. Yeah, sure, it doesn't cost a lot of money to support a TF2 scene, but for every dollar that you spend in TF2, that same dollar could be put towards a variety of other esports, larger esports, where that dollar will take you farther, which will give you more reach. I don't think TF2 is really the best investment opportunity at that, from that aspect. So we need developer support, but we also need a buzz. We need people to be interested in the game. That's what really attracts the sponsors. Because put yourself in their shoes. They want each dollar that they spend to give them the maximum exposure. They're trying to promote their brands. They're trying to align their brand with the top teams of whatever esport they're trying to support. They want people to look at those esports and go, wow, Team Denial is so good at Gears of War. They just won the championship last weekend. They just won the ESL Pro League. Wow, let's learn more about Denial. Oh, they're sponsored by XYZ organizations. That's so cool. And then that's sort of that, it gets you in, it's a form of advertising. It gets it in your head. So that is what really grows these organizations. And for them, like I said, the wisest thing for them to do is hold their money and wait and see what happens. If you look at other games like Overwatch, for example, that game has a tremendous amount of buzz around it for a game that hasn't even been released yet. I had the opportunity to go to BlizzCon a couple months ago, and I saw firsthand the lines for people trying to get in line to just have an opportunity to play the closed beta of Overwatch. People just show up there just because they wanted to play the game. That's incredible. Just to see the line and then to know that this is going to be a 6v6 competitive format for Overwatch is like, whoa, that is so cool. And that is why, you see these organizations like Fnatic and Tempo Storm making the news, because they're trying to lock in those teams early on and secure those teams for a cheap price before this game blows up as an esport, before they have to pay a lot of money to secure those teams. So it's really interesting to see, like, when that game has a lot of buzz around it, that's going to attract the sponsors. And TF2 just doesn't have that buzz quite yet. And, unfortunately for us, that buzz has to be organic. You have to have people who are genuinely interested in the game. I think developer support can help. They can force a game into becoming an esport. The example that I like to use is Heroes of the Storm, which is a game that, as far as MOBAs are concerned, it's definitely not the most competitive MOBA. It's not the hardest MOBA to play. People always joke that Heroes of the Storm, you have these sort of like washed up other MOBA players that go to play Heroes of the Storm or whatever. But, with the developer support, they're able to put enough money behind it to get people interested in the game. So even if people wouldn't have otherwise been interested in that game on its own, if it wasn't developed by Blizzard, but the fact that Blizzard put so much money behind it attracts people to that game. So I think that TF2 it's been a huge cash cow for Valve for years. This is an opportunity for them to put money behind the game, attract people, attract players to that game. And once you attract the players, that's when you attract the sponsors, because the sponsors will go wherever everyone else is going. They're just kind of following their lead. If all the players are grouping around League of Legends, that's the place to be. If there's more people come to TF2, and they might have an opportunity to get some value in there, right? To get a cheap deal, to have that dollar go further than where it would go if they were to just dump it into League of Legends where there's so much competition. So those are my thoughts on sponsorships. I think that it's possible for these sponsors to come back to TF2, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take a really good esport. A really, really good esport.